Servus and welcome to another episode of the Pro Hockey Pod, episode 87. Took a bit of a break there for a while. As you may know, it was the off season, and I was trying to let these coaches, enjoy the small piece that they get during the summers. It's still quite busy for a lot of them. You can see Anthony here rolling his eyes as I said that. So, as we know, this is a 24/7 business, passion, whatever you want to call it. But we're back at it here with the coaches series, and this week, someone kind of like me came from the D3 route. I was a D3 athlete myself, and this guy has gone on to have a tremendous career in coaching, whether it was being in the USHL or now NCAA Division One. So happy to talk to him. Hopefully, he'll share some secrets for the listeners out there of how he grinded his way there and now is doing a great job there at the University of Miami of Ohio. Welcome to the Pro Hockey Pod, Anthony Noreen.
Andrew, thanks for having me. Glad we were able to do this.
Yeah, we talked about it off camera. It's obviously with the time change and just the schedules, we were trying to find a way, but you're here now, so we're gonna get into it. Starting off kind of with your childhood there, I always like to go kind of back where it started. So I believe you grew up in the Chicago, Illinois area there. What's kind of maybe your first childhood memory growing up there, and what kind of influenced you into the sport of hockey, whether it was maybe the Blackhawks or a family member or something along those lines?
Yeah, in my case, it was certainly family. And, I think if you look and you think of Chicago now, youth hockey is just like booming there. And, it happens right now, it's happening in the Florida area, Tampa. Like the Hawks won those couple Stanley Cups, and now it seems like everybody's kids playing, learn to play and playing hockey. And, it was kind of the opposite when I was growing up. Like I grew up in kind of a middle class neighborhood in the city and hardworking, probably a little more so lower middle class. And like, I didn't have a single other hockey player in my entire grade school. In fact, I had to move to a high school about 30 minutes away from my house because I didn't have a high school near me that had a hockey team. So I got into hockey because my dad was was a hockey player and a hockey coach, and my older brother played, and I was kind of that little kid with the helmet on the bench of my dad's teams, opening the door for the defenseman and jumping on and wherever I could playing. And in the summers, I would put rollerblades on when I got up in the morning, and I'd take them off at the end of the night. And I'd shoot pucks in the basement and break windows every once in a while. And my mom would want to kill me. And I just, as like no matter what sport you play, and I played every sport. I played baseball, I played football, I played everything. Like you just gravitate towards hockey. There's just something about it. If you're a hockey player, it's just who you are. Like you don't play hockey, you're a hockey player. And it's just kind of what I gravitated towards. And thankfully I had parents that sacrificed to get me to the rink and give me the equipment and the things I needed. I don't know to this day how they managed to do it. But obviously the game was one thing, but the lessons you learn in the relationships you make in this game for me were special, and it's why I wanted to continue and make it a career.
I'm always curious too with an American like yourself. Obviously in Canada we have kind of a system where it's triple A, double A, single A. A lot of cities have all three levels. Some have two of every level, depending where you are. If you're from the Greater Toronto area like me, like what was kind of like your minor hockey path growing up and the structure that you grew up with?
Yeah, so there was in the US it's called like a house league. So, it's kind of like learn to play like before you get into mites or Adam or whatever. Like we would play, I played at a local rink where there were four teams and you signed up for a team. And unfortunately, in my first ever hockey league, only three goalies signed up for our league. So one team had to have no goalie. And my dad, being kind of like I am, like in the underdog story, he's like, we'll take no goalie. We'll just play with six all season. And the great story is we had eight guys on that team. Five guys went on to play junior A team from my first ever hockey team I played. I think I was five. And three guys are still in coaching to this day. And we went undefeated the whole season. Then we tied in the championship game, went to a shootout with no goalie and lost. So, that's how you start. You start just locally, and then it's double A at the time. There wasn't even triple A until you got to Bantams. So really, until you got to high school, double A was the highest you could play at the time. So, unfortunately for me, the local team I played for moved about 45 minutes away, and like you're so ingrained in the organization, your teammates and the coaches, that I just stayed with them. So God love my dad, he drove me 45 minutes back and forth every day to practice, and I stayed with that organization. Then when it was time to get to AAA, at the time there were only two teams. There was Team Illinois and there was Chicago Young Americans. That was it in the Chicago area. So Kind of my whole group of guys that played for the Chicago Flames moved to Team Illinois, and played AAA there. And then my high school that I played at, Fenwick High School, is a really well-renowned high school hockey program. Like a lot of NHL guys came through there. Joe Corvo, Tim Stapleton, like just a lot of really good players. So I was fortunate to go play there. And yeah, it's kind of found hockey wherever and whenever I could. It wasn't like there was a rink I could walk to or go play. Like I said, it was a lot of off ice, playing in the basement, roller hockey, things like that to try and stay around the game.
First off, I would say, like, to all those parents out there listening, thank you for all the sacrifices you make. Like, you brought up another example of, your parents driving you 45 minutes to the rink and back every day so that you can go practice with your teammates. I thought at first when you brought up the house league story, I thought your dad was gonna be like, "Well, my son will just go in net. It's fine, like throw you in net
Well,
first."
we
So
just we just kind of rotated back, so it was like a third defenseman back there.
yeah, well, it's crazy you guys end up going to the finals with no goalie. That's pretty impressive. But another thing you brought up, which I think is unique, is obviously the differences between Canada and the U.S. is the high school hockey structure. Like, high school hockey in the States is obviously a more popular route, and in North America, or sorry, in Canada, it's more, you do that when you're not playing rep anymore. But when you were growing up, getting to that age, being in high school and stuff, one thing that comes up is obviously the idea of potentially major junior. I don't know how big it was for you growing up, being there in the States. Was there any thought of that route, or you were always focused on I want to try to go to the school route?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was no different than a Canadian only knows the major junior route. I think for us growing up, we only knew the college hockey route, and that being the long-term dream and goal. Um, and honestly, at that point when I was playing, I'm an 83. Like, even the thought of a guy leaving high school early to go play juniors was almost unheard of. Like, it was you aged out of midgets, you played your last year U18 midget major at the time, then you moved on to juniors, and juniors was old. I mean, I can remember being an 18-year-old getting to juniors and being the youngest guy on my team. Like, it was unheard of to have a high school, senior or junior on your team. So it was just older in general. But it's just kind of the path here. And I think that's what's cool about the changing times now, where like kids that maybe were never thinking about college are finding out about it and seeing what it has to offer, and vice versa. Kids that never thought about the CHL or major junior are now exploring that options and getting to see what that's like. So just a totally different situation, I guess, than what it is in the current landscape.
Yeah, we grew up with that choice at such a young age. Whether it was, for some of us, it was at 16 years old. You got to choose if you're going to burn your eligibility of the major junior route, or if you're going to stay back and play another year midget or tier two junior, so you could think of the school route. Obviously, as you mentioned today, it's changed a lot, and we'll talk about that probably later in the podcast. But when you end up making the jump to junior hockey, there, you played for the Connecticut Clippers and also the Springfield Junior Blues, like coming from high school, being a little older, as you mentioned, you're the youngest guy at 18, which is pretty crazy. I played with guys who were 16 at the tier two junior level, but did you feel you're ready to take that step, and how was the adjustment for you?
I did. It was interesting. So I went to camp with Springfield. Um, was like right down to it, like last cut in camp. Maybe just wasn't ready for the junior A level yet. And honestly, it was probably the best thing that ever happened in my hockey career. Like, it's one of those where you want to make the team. It's the first time I've ever been cut. Feel like I should have made the team, and I think it just lit a fire underneath me where it was like I didn't even know where Connecticut was. And it was like, hey, this was at the time a lot of the junior A teams had like affiliated, quote unquote junior B teams. It was the same ownership group. So they were like, hey, we'd really like for you to go play for our junior B team. They'd won the national championship the year before. I didn't know a single player, single coach, anything. And it's still a piece of advice I give players of mine, whether it was when I was in junior and we would have a kid on our affiliate list that was moving away somewhere, or now in college and we have a recruit that's going to play juniors for the first time. Like, I could remember actively being on my drive out to Connecticut with my parents, 16 hours across the country. And I'm like, I don't know a single person here, but like, what's kind of cool about that is like, they don't know me. So whatever I want to be, like, I have a chance to be right now. And, I was a captain and a leader always, but I was like, man, like trying to think of things of guys I played with that I would want to emulate and want to be that type of guy on this new team. Um, and I was just so focused that I was gonna pay my dues there. I was gonna put in everything I possibly could to get myself back to Springfield. And like I said, I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was just totally. It's the first time in your life where you're in midgets or high school. You're practicing 2 times a week, maybe three, playing games on the weekends, not really working out every day. Like it's just now it's okay. Junior hockey, you got practice every day. You're in the gym every day. You got games on the weekend. You're not playing 5 games on the weekend like you are a midget, which is totally counterproductive. Like you play 2 games, you get a Sunday off. You're in the rhythm of just being a real hockey player and in doing this kind of as almost a job. And I loved it. Like I jumped 2 feet head first into it. Like I'm gonna do everything I can. I'm gonna be the first guy there. I'm gonna be the last guy to leave, and had a good start there, and then wound up getting called up to Springfield at Christmas, and kind of never looked back. Stayed there the rest of the year, and then wound up being a captain my second year, and just an awesome junior experience overall. And I think again, junior hockey, it's your first time away from home. Like I think it's even when I worked at the pro level, like you'd see people I think worry sometimes, and I have this talk with when you're recruiting young kids to college of like, well, what's he going to do? It's like a gap year between high school and college. Like then he's out of school, and whether it's the parent or the kid worried about that, like I think it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Like you're out of school. I think by the time I did get back into school, I realized like it's not cool to be the guy that doesn't take school serious. It's not cool to be the guy that doesn't get good grades. Like I think I had way more life skills. Like I said, I'd been away from home, so it wasn't my first time ever, living away by myself. I'd had to do my own laundry. I had to make my own food, and like I just think it totally prepares you for the next level of life for hockey, but just like I said, for like time management, life management, and things like that. And I think junior hockey is great, and it's a big part of why I've spent so much of my coaching career at that level. It's just something I truly believe in, with obviously the next step being hopefully to get to the collegiate level and pro after that.
First of all, I would say it's pretty impressive, like just kind of the mindset you had when you were leaving home there. Because, like, as you mentioned, a lot of athletes would be nervous, being like, "Oh my God, I'm going somewhere where I don't know anyone. Like, how is this going to be for me?" But you were like, "Hey, here's a new opportunity. Like, they don't know me, I don't know them, and I can, as you said, like, be whatever I want to be or be the person that I want them to see, kind of thing." And you just got right to work, and obviously, a big reason why you were able to go back halfway through the year. And yeah, I agree with you. Like I had that leap year as well. I was taking courses on the side, but I think it taught me a lot because it was like, I was able to kind of take a break from the school and kind of figure out what I wanted to do the next year. Because it also is a huge decision. If you're going to college at 18, they're like, hey, pick a major. Like,
Right.
what am I going to know at 18? I was into like video games and like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know what
Yeah.
I wanted to do yet. And it helped me to kind of mature a year. I still think as a goalie, I went 1 year too early. I should have probably won at 20, but it still is, that worry of parents or kids being like, oh, that gap year, like, oh, like it doesn't affect you. I tell kids these days, like, if you can go later, go later. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to be more mature. You're going to be more ready. You'll understand what it means to get to the collegiate level and the work that you need to do both as an athlete and as a student. So, um, speaking of the collegiate level, you mentioned you played those years there of junior, and then you end up making a decision we all have to make. So you end up choosing to go to university there. You end up going to D3 school that I unfortunately didn't play against. We actually almost played them in one of the tournaments the one year I remember, but University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. How did you decide on that school? And maybe for those of us who've never been there, like myself, like what was your experience like? Maybe talk about the campus and just your overall 4 years there.
Yeah, it's funny how it kind of came together. Obviously, it's a powerhouse program that had a great history, and it seemed like a place that a lot of guys from the Midwest and Chicago area were trying to go to. I had a year left of juniors, so I had played my second year in Springfield, and a teammate of mine was going on a recruiting trip there, and we had a kid that played in Springfield the year before, 2 guys that played in Springfield the year before that were there. And he's like, hey, I'm going on. He was aging out of juniors. He's like, hey, I'm going on a recruiting trip to Stevens Point. You want to just come with me, go see the boys? You can hang out with them. I'll go on my recruiting trip. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Well, why not? Our season was over. So get a chance to go see some of the guys and went on the trip and just like, and credit to Joe Balderota, who's the coach there at the time, like didn't even know I was coming. He's like, no, come on, like you're coming on the recruiting trip. And loop me in on everything. And it's, I tell guys this all the time when they go on recruiting trips. And especially when I was working at the USHL level, like I think it's so common that you sit down with a kid and a family and you say, where do you want to go to school? And they say the same three or four schools that have nothing to do with each other. One's in the middle of a city, one's in the middle of nowhere, one's got 60,000 students, one's got 3,000 students. Like, I think I would tell every one of our guys when they would be, making college decisions, go someplace and it's just going to feel right. Like the people are going to feel right, the coaches are going to feel right, the school and walking around campus, it's going to feel right, and that's the place you should go. Like I've never met the person who's not completely comfortable and feel wanted and feel safe in the place that they're going that maximizes what they're capable of. That doesn't mean not getting pushed out of their comfort zone, but there's gotta be a feeling of like this is where I'm supposed to be. These are the people that are going to get the most out of me. These are the people I want to spend 4 years around. And for whatever reason, I went there and it just clicked. And I'm like, man, if you'll take me next year, this place is unbelievable. I would love to come. And it wound up being that. I mean, it was is the old cliche. It was the best 4 years of my life. I mean, I made lifelong friends, like a group of guys that I lived with in college. I've stood up in every one of their weddings. There's five of us. I stood up in all their weddings. Godfathers of their kids. Some of them are some of my best friends. Still coach, like a guy like Tommy Upton who's coaching at UMass, and like it's another guy's an agent, another guy's a scout. Like they stayed and worked in hockey, and just those relationships were unbelievable. And great hockey program. Like if you haven't had a chance to see a game at Stevens Point, it's one place in college hockey I would highly suggest for anybody. It's absolutely insane. Standing room only every game, band rocking, student section. That's crazy. Low ceiling, loud in there. Tough place for opposing teams. It's a reason they've won so much and been on such a good run especially the last 8 to 10 years here. It seems like they're in the national championship game almost every year. And unbelievable place, a place I still follow and proud to be an alumni of. But it was a great choice and something that obviously set me up to then stay there and wind up getting into my coaching career.
That's one thing I tell a lot of people out there is like you would know this too. Like when we were growing up, like D3 had kind of this like negative stigma to it, meaning like, oh, you're not going D1, oh, you're going D3. Like kind of had that like tone to it where there's so many programs. Like Oswego was one of them when I was there. Your school as well, Wisconsin Stevens Point. Like you had Norwich, you had St. Norbert, like all these schools that were like when I was at Oswego, we had 3,000 fans a game. It was more than I had at Niagara. And it was just like the atmosphere was awesome and the town rallied around the team. Like you were treated like gods there. And it was so much fun. I tell people like at the end of the day, it's about your experience and living in that, like as you said, those 4 years, I call it fake life. You live in a bubble for 4 years. You get to enjoy yourselves. Then when you get out, the real world hits you. But it's just as you make so many close friends there, have so many memories, and I'm sure to this day with your friends, you're still talking about stuff that happened back in college. Like it's just reminiscing about the times, right?
Absolutely. And it's like you see those guys, and it's funny. Like there'll be guys like you go back for an alumni weekend or an event, and like it's like you just pick right up where you left off. And it's the most, to me, the coolest thing about being a part of a hockey team. And like, we talk here, like we have a no phones rule. So like no phones in the locker room, no phones at team meals, no phones. We're out to dinner, whatever it is, like no phones in the players' lounge, no phones in the weight room. And I'm like, I was trying to explain to the guys, I'm like, guys, this isn't a punishment. This is something you are going to thank me for in 10 years. Because every guy that you meet that's done playing hockey, I've never met the guy that's like, man, I wish I could go back to college and spend more time scrolling Instagram. Or for in our case, maybe being on Facebook or whatever it was. Like you miss being around the guys. And like you see those guys, and like I said, man, like I just pick up, it could be 10 years. And it's like you pick up right where you left off, whether it's chirping each other or things that happened or stories or whatever. Like, I'll be on the road with Tommy Upton sometimes, and like we'll sit at a dinner, it'll be 10 people, and we'll just tell stories for 2 hours, and guys are just absolutely dying laughing. And it's all stuff that we just experienced together, living together and playing together. And I think that's again a huge part of what makes college hockey special is that and those relationships.
No, I 100% agree. You mentioned already that you ended up staying after your 4 years of playing were done. I'm always curious to coaches who get into coaching. Like, did you know when maybe during your senior year or maybe you knew your whole career, like, did you always know that, hey, I want to stay involved in hockey, and did you always think it'd be on the coaching side, or like how did that opportunity come about for you? Because obviously, you know, to stay on there and get that experience right away has obviously kind of led you on the path that you've been on the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, every kid dreams of playing in the NHL, and every kid, when I was up shooting pucks at 2 o'clock in the morning in my parents' basement, you're dreaming of scoring a goal to win a Stanley Cup or a national championship, whatever it might have been. But there's a funny story, like, so Chicago, all the houses have basements, and every once in a while there'll be a flood in Chicago. And unfortunately, my parents had a really bad flood probably about 10 years ago, where like the basement got flooded out, and they had a bunch of just stuff in storage, whether it's old stuff from us from school or trophies or whatever it might have been. And as they were kind of throwing everything out and trying to salvage stuff, they found something that was just like kind of like arts and crafts from me and my brother and sister when we were kids. And one of the things that survived it was a picture, and it was me in second grade, and the project was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was a picture, and again, and my drawing still this day is terrible. So at second grade, it was even harder to make out, but it was a picture of me standing on a hockey bench with a group of guys sitting in front of me in equipment wearing jerseys that said USA. And obviously I'd hit home when I got a chance to coach the Halinka team or coach some of the under 19 World Junior Challenge teams. But I think it was always in the back of my mind, like this is what I want to do from being a little kid. Again, it's what my dad did. So like you're gonna emulate your dad and but I also think like I always felt like that's where my bigger gift I could give to teammates and to my teams was like just being a leader and being a captain and helping guys along. And I thought that was, I just thought that was always my biggest strength. Um, and I knew I was going to do it eventually. Obviously, you still want to play. And then I got a chance to meet Will Nickel. And Will Nickel, who's now the director of player development for the Golden Knights, who was a prominent alum of Stevens Point, captain there, played in a national championship game, coach of the year in the USHL, comes back to Stevens Point to coach his alma mater, and met him. He takes over after a legendary coach, and just hearing his goal, his vision, his passion, and him and I getting to know each other. I was staying there finishing summer courses, and I'd been the captain the last 3 years of the team, and he was just, hey, what am I getting into? What do I need to know? Tell me about this guy. Tell me about how you guys did this. What should we do different? What did you like? And the more him and I talked, he was just kind of like, why don't you stay and coach? And it was just kind of a no-brainer. And it was one of those like, you know, you're going to be a volunteer. You're going to be you could be a grad assistant. We can't pay you, but like, if this is really what you want to do, and I'm so thankful to Will, and it's something I used when I became a head coach for the first time. Like, I was on a staff, he made me coach. Like, I had never coached in my life before, and it was like, no, you're running the D, you're running the penalty kill, you're running study tables, you're going to be out on the road recruiting, you're going to do video, you're going to work with the goalies, you're going to do all these things, and like, you just figure it out. Like, and I was also in grad school, and again, to learn from a coach like that in my first coaching stop, to have someone empower me and give me an opportunity to do it at my alma mater, to do it in a little bit of a odd situation. Like, here's guys that I was living with, hanging out with my buddies, and now I'm on the bench running them, deploying them on the ice, having to tell the guys a healthy scratch that night. Like, it was interesting too and challenging, but man, it's like it's a huge reason of every guy that I've hired in my career coaching as an assistant has been a volunteer at some point. And I just think that is so important. And that's not to say it's the end all be all, but like you find out if it's what you really want to do. Like if this is what you really want to do, like, and you're doing it and you're overworked and not even underpaid, but not paid, like this is, it's really your life. And for me, it became my life, and was able to move on from there. But to me, that was the best decision I probably ever made in my life was staying in working at Stevens Point.
You're definitely not the only coach I've talked to on this podcast that kind of has that same mentality as you when it comes to when looking for assistance. Like it's the classic saying that, like, the harder you work, the more you get. And for those people like yourself that started off as a grad assistant, not making any money and basically running everything, and being almost thrown into the fire and seeing how you can adapt and how quickly it ends up, you know, people at the end of the day who have to battle for everything and have to prove people wrong, I think always end up getting further than people that where everything is given to them right away and they don't have to work for it. But I wanted to ask you, you kind of brought it up too, like when you were speaking there, like how did you balance that? Like you, as you mentioned, like you were teammates with a lot of these guys right away, and then you're having to be on the other side of it. I mean, as an assistant, you can obviously have a little more friendly, I would say, relationship with players versus the head coach in terms of like, keeping the respect there. But like, how did you balance, being in your new role, but also, still one of the boys at times, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And it was, I'll never forget my first meeting with Will. And I think it's no different than any leader. Like you set the standards for the organization. And the first thing Will told me, like, you're a coach now. And my rule for assistant coaches is there are no soft shoulders. So it can't be, hey, I'm hard on that guy. And then he comes to you because you're his buddy and you give him an easy way out or you let him off the hook. And I think hearing that right away was like, well, that's my boss. This is the guy running the program. So that's the way I have to be. And listen, it made for some awkward situations, like with guys who I'm buddies with and I know their parents and I hang out with them in the summer. And then, it's parents' weekend and their parents are there. They know me as his buddy, but, I'm running the D and he's a healthy scratch. And like it was, it was hard, but I think like anything else that's hard, you grow quickly. You learn quickly. Like, and I think it was one of those things I was either gonna sink or swim. And it's like, hey, this is really what I want to do. I need to figure it out. And I've got one of those brains where if it's like I'm there's not very many things that I just like do as hobbies. I'm either all in on something, I'm a zero or I'm 100. Like I don't if I'm not good at something, I don't do it. And if I want to be good at it or I like it, I'm going to study, read, watch, listen to every single thing I can on it. So, that's just what I did. I found every book I could find on coaching. I picked the brain of every coach that I knew. Anytime I got a chance to sit down with someone that whether they played or coached, I just asked them and tried to learn that way and kind of on the fly for sure. But I'll tell you what, I learned a lot from those guys too, and what their feedback was, and when I would get to, hey, what do you guys think? What do you see? Is there a different way that I could communicate with you? And I think that's kind of one of the things I learned early on is it's not a one size fits all. Like you got to have your standards, but then there's certain guys that you just, there's different ways of getting the best out of guys, and ultimately that's your job as a coach is to find a way to maximize guys.
No, definitely maximizing their potential, bringing out the best in them is obviously one of the big responsibilities from a coach. You end up staying 3 years there at Wisconsin Stevens Point, and then, as you mentioned, you transition off to junior hockey. You go to the USHL there in Youngstown. You were there for 5 years. First year as an assistant, and then I believe you took over as the head coach and GM at the same time. So getting a lot of recruiting still, kind of like you were in college, as well as running the bench and everything. One thing I thought was very cool, within a couple of years of you coaching in the league, you win Coach of the Year, and for someone that is greener to coaching, I would say, only a couple of years of experience under your belt, that obviously is a tremendous feat to win Coach of the Year, especially in probably the best Tier 2 junior league in North America, I would say. Um,
Tier one
any,
junior.
yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean, Tier 1 junior league. But any anything special like you think happened that year, or do you think just kind of all the years of kind of like building your own recipe, whether it was at Wisconsin Stevens Point and a couple of years earlier in Youngstown, you just kind of put together something that, clicked with the guys and you guys just, ended up having such a good year that, the league recognized you for your success, both team and individual.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's number one, the people that I surrounded myself with, and I got very lucky early on with Will, in having being able to learn from him for 3 years firsthand, and then I go to Youngstown and Curtis Carr is the head coach there, and Jason Kohler is the assistant GM and director of player personnel, and Curtis Carr is as good of a human being and as good to his staff as any person I've ever been around. Great hockey mind, has been a great college hockey coach since then. Jason Kohler's a highly renowned person in the player procurement of scouting, building relationships with agents and players and draft and things like that. So, taking, okay, I just learned all this stuff from Will. I knew this as a player coming up. I learned this from different coaches I played for. Now I'm working as an assistant. I like this from Will. I saw this from Kurt. I learned this from Jason. And man, like when I got the head, and then it's right place, right time. I mean, listen, there are a lot of great coaches out there that would be phenomenal head coaches that just maybe haven't gotten the right shot. And I was so fortunate that at a young age, it was just like opportunity came where I was 28 years old, and I was probably realistically 5 years away from even getting an interview for USHL job. And that's just real. I mean, it came from Division 3 where I was a volunteer assistant for 2 years, a full-time assistant for a year. I was an assistant coach on a team that didn't make the playoffs in the USHL. Like I needed to continue to pay my dues. Um, and Curtis Carr got a great opportunity to go work for Mark Dennehy at Merrimack. And Kurt had the team steered in the right direction. Like it was, we had some promising young players. Our culture was going in a good direction, and we just had an owner that just believed in my vision. I mean, our owner is Bruce Olden, who owns Phantom Fireworks, which is the largest fireworks company in the world. Highly successful, self-built guy. Um, who just is as successful of a businessman as I've ever met. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna go for this. And I was just honest. I told him everything I thought of where the organization needed to get better, what I could do, not make any promises, but if you give me an opportunity, this is what I think. And like he's like, hey, we'll give you 1 year. And there was nobody more surprised than me. Like he's like, you got 1 year, let's see what you do. And thankfully in that 1 year we got it going and we made the playoffs and won a playoff round and by year two, we were, playing Jim Montgomery's team in the finals and had another really good year. And then year four, it was a combination of just the organization continuing to build and the culture continuing to build in the right direction. But also, like, we had some elite players. I mean, Kyle Connors in his third year of juniors on that team. He had a chance to accelerate and go into Michigan a year early. He comes back for his third year of juniors. We had probably the best captain I've ever been around, Ryan Lomberg. Like, Ryan Lomberg is a, 5'10", and he'd be the first one to tell you, not the fastest, not the most skilled guy in the world, but there's a reason that he's won a Stanley Cup, and there's a reason that NHL teams want him on their bench, in their locker room, and in their lineup. He's just an elite, competitive human being. I mean, Kiefer Sherwood was on that team. He just broke the NHL record for hits in a season, a Miami alum as well. And guys like Josh Melnick. It was just a really good combination of culture continuing to build, go in the right direction. Our standards were in place. We were a team that can beat you any which way. We played hard, but there was a love and a pride in putting that Youngstown Phantoms jersey on. And man, I'll never forget it. I think we were 13-12 at the Christmas break, and we finished the year 40-14. And we broke the junior hockey record for longest win streak. We went 17 games in a row. It was just a special year. And one all like you get in those winning streaks, it's hard to even remember what was going on, but it was fun to be a part of. And it's yeah, you get the coach of the year. Like that's won by the players and the support staff and the opportunity you're given. And like I said, for me, it was right place, right time. And you feel like everything that you took and pulled and learned and threw away from different stops, kind of hopefully prepare you for that level. And when you get that team, and that's what that was.
I'm just looking at your guys' roster here. I clicked on one of the years because I thought that Matt O'Connor was there as your goalie, and he was.
Oh
And
yeah,
I just realized too that you have or you had, sorry, current Adler Mannheim defenseman Dan Renouf on your
oh yeah.
team as well. So we just signed him in the summer, and he's been here for about a month now. Like I getting to know this guy for over a month, I would say like just an absolute beauty.
Unbelievable.
Always like can make me laugh too. And then the one game we've had so far in exhibition, someone challenged him and regretted it immediately. So
And that dude, that's the thing about Danny. He is the sneakiest tough guy I've ever seen. Like he's skinny, doesn't look like much, and he catches a lot of guys by surprise. Like anytime, it'd be like, good luck, buddy, whoever wanted to challenge that kid because he could throw him.
I got a video I can send you after of him in
Please
a
do.
game. It was pretty good. But yeah, you mentioned definitely undercover tough. But as I back to your kind of career there, as I mentioned, so you end up winning Coach of the Year, have success there in Youngstown. And then you end up making the jump to pro hockey, going to the ACHL there for the Orlando Solar Bears. Maybe talk about just your experience of the difference between junior hockey and then going to pro. And obviously, we all know too like how crazy the schedules can be, the difference in roster sizes in the USHL, the transactions, every day somebody's going in or going out. Like it's just a chaos at times. But just talk about, the I'd say the differences and just your experience in the 2 years there.
Yeah, I mean, my experience was unbelievable in that I came in, so we were the affiliate of the Maple Leafs and Marlies at the time. And when I got there, so Sheldon Keefe had just gotten hired, Mike Babcock had just gotten hired, DJ Smith and Jimmy Hiller were Mike Babcock's assistants. And then John Snowden was my assistant in Orlando, who's now the head coach of Lehigh Valley. Ryan Ward was the video coach, who's now the head coach of Youngstown. Steve Briere was the goalie coach. Like, man, the group of people that were in there. Kyle Dubas, who maybe the sharpest, guy from a management side I've ever been around. And just like to be able to spend 2 summers in a row around those guys, it was like getting a master's class in coaching and in hockey philosophy and in leadership and all those things. It's something it was irreplaceable for me just to be able to learn from those guys, and in those relationships are ones that I'll forever cherish. And so being there, being a part of that was special. Going to Orlando, like, what I learned pretty quick was like, man, you're thinking like, okay, I just came from the USHL where I'm the head coach and GM. I've got an assistant GM. I've got a scouting staff. I've got 2 full-time assistants. I've got I had a strength coach. I had an equipment manager. I had to train. Then I get to the ECHL. It's like, okay, you have room for one staff member, and you could pay him this, which is like minimum wage. And it's like, where are you going to find a guy to do that? Oh, and then you could have a guy be your trainer and equipment manager. Like, it was just insane to me how it's like you're in a development league level, and I know that things have gotten better since then. And listen, I'll never complain. I think we were right on par with every other organization, but it was just crazy to me to go from like you're in junior hockey, now it's pro, and wait, like we have one assistant, and like thankfully Snowy, who just got done playing, was like, yeah, I don't care what you pay me, I'll come be your assistant. And obviously he's parlayed that into a great coaching career. So that was eye opener to me, like the shortened roster of like only dressing 10 forward 60, and then like man, I can't, like when Snowy took the job, he was like, listen, the one deal you have to make with me, I'm not playing. And at the time, I was like, why would I ask you to like play? And then you realize about a month into the season, like when you're short rostered, why guys are coming out of the stands and out of the Zamboni room to like dress for games and sign contracts. But Snowy, man, the one thing he probably dressed in practice 3/4 of the time because we'd be down to like 10, 11 healthy bodies. And, um, I loved my time there. I think there's a lot of things I would do different, do better, or hopefully do better. But it was like, man, it was humbling for me. Year 2 getting let go, and like you find out a lot about yourself. Okay, again, is this really what I want to do? Am I going to feel sorry for myself, or am I going to parlay this, learn from this, turn this into my next stop? And thankfully that next stop was Tri-City, and I think I feel like the first time around in Youngstown, yeah, I had some really good coaches that I learned from, but it was a lot of fire and passion. We got a lot of things done. I think of the days of me, Brad Patterson, Rob Rassi, John Roden. Like it was just a lot of like, man, we're just gonna work and have fun and love this and get a team that loves it and just plays with more juice than other teams. And then, by the time that I got to Tri-City, I, kept that, but it was also like, man, I just learned a lot of really good stuff, whether it was from Sheldon Keefe or DJ Smith or Mike Babcock, just being around those guys just for those summer kind of months, seeing what they do and take it back to the junior level and now feel even more prepared. And, again, right place, right time. A second time I came into a team that was coming off I think Tri-City had the worst or second worst record in the league before I got there. And, it was just time for a culture change. And, we had some high picks in the draft and just seemed like everything kind of fell into place, specifically the second year where, we're able to just build a really strong organization there.
You end up spending 7 seasons there, and you just mentioned yourself, like you'd come from a pro experience where you got to learn and talk to so many coaches, people that had high resumes, have had long careers, and kind of learn from them. And it was your second time around, and um, you know, kind of had maybe a different approach to going into it this time. But what were some of those things you would say that like whether it was talking to Sheldon Keefe or Mike Babcock or whoever it might have been, like I'm just name dropping right now, but what are some of the things that maybe conversations you had with these coaches that you were like, wow, that makes sense, and that you've maybe implemented into your coaching style or your coaching game nowadays?
Yeah, and I think, part of it was conversations, but a big part of it was just observing. Like, what do they do that you like, that you see is working? What do they do that you don't like? And it wasn't necessarily any of it, maybe rocket science, but like, man, just the way that Kyle Dubas communicated with people and with players and cared about the players, the way that Mike demanded, and like, man, you could see it just in the short time I'd be around them in the summer or training camp, things like that. And like Sheldon being willing to, think outside the box and learning from Snowy, who's a guy who was like, a career minor leaguer and, gave every single bit of his body and in heart and life to the game. Like, so you take a lot of that stuff, but, a huge part of what I and we took with us to Tri-City when I went there was from like the skill development side. And obviously Toronto was going through a rebuild. They had Daryl Belfry and Mike Ellis there at the time, running their skills. And Kyle was like, listen, we're going to be very young. So, we want a lot of skill development with these guys. We want to plan. And it was kind of deconstructing, okay, here's how we want to play. What are the skills, habits, details you need to play this way? Let's work on it in small groups. And, at the time they called it pods. And that was something we did when I went to Tri-City. At the time it was myself, Ethan Goldberg, who's now in Wenatchee, Troy Thibodeau, who's now here with me. He was in Dartmouth the last couple of years and came here to Miami with me. Like, and we said, okay, hey, let's look at how we eventually want to play. Let's break it down into the small habits, skills, details to play that way. And the greatest thing about Tri-City was we owned the rink in Kearney, Nebraska. There's not a lot of other hockey there. So if we wanted to be on the ice 10 hours a day, we could be on the ice 10 hours a day. So we did what was called pods. So we would, every day our guys would come in. We do a position specific video session. So forwards only, D's only. And we would have half the guys go out. So half the D, 4D, forwards, it's called seven forwards, go out on the ice. And we would just rep things. Maybe we do three drills, but if it was a wall play drill, instead of maybe doing it in practice and you got 3 reps, we'd go out and do 50 reps in a small group and just high volume, just like rep through it, get through these habits. While the other half of the guys were working out, we'd do that for an hour, then we'd flip flop, then we'd let the guys go to lunch, then we'd come back, we'd do a full team video session, then we'd do a full team practice. And if maybe that day we were working breakout habits with the D, breakout habits with the forward, now we would do it as, show it in a team setting and practice it in a team setting. And like what we found out was that just like stacked up. We were just on the ice more than other people. We just practiced, we worked at it, we showed more video. Our guys spent way more time on the ice and around each other, and we just got better. And I think if you went and you really looked at our records in Tri-City and what our record was after Christmas and in the second half of the year, all those years and point production from some of those guys, like it always seemed like we ramped up at the end. And I always used to tell guys when I was there, like, it's this isn't for everyone, but if you love hockey, this is the best place to be because we're going to be on the ice, we're going to work at it, and the best guys, the Shane Pintos, the Matt Neises, the Ronnie Addards, like those guys put in the time and they had a ton of success because of it.
What's a famous saying? Isn't it like to be an expert at something, you have to do 10,000 hours or
Yeah.
practice 10,000 hours? And like just you talking to you, like, or hearing you talk about that reminded me of that. And also like talking to other coaches. And it's like, there's a lot of coaches out there today which try to like come out with something new, fancy thing that looks like new and catches people's eyes, like as if they've reinvented the game. But like coaches like yourself, where it's just like working on skill, working on board plays for 50 reps. Like that's something that happens every game, multiple times in a game. And then when you're doing that consistently throughout a season, as you mentioned, by the second half of the year, you guys have put so many hours in more than a lot of other teams where that's where you were able to just elevate your play and things became maybe easier or came natural to your players. Like it's small stuff like that, like just the small attention to detail, the fine things that I think make the difference between, whether it's good coaches and great coaches or good teams and great teams. And obviously, with your resume and the 7 years you spent there in Tri-City, I think, like the evidence is there for you.
And listen, it's not just putting the hours in, it's intentional hours, intentional reps. We never just practiced or skated just to skate.
No, it's
It
not
was like
going through the motions. Like it's
exactly. And one of the lines we use here all the time is consistency leads to creativity. Like everyone wants to use their skill. Everyone wants to have, a scoring chance or have the puck, but like how do you get the puck back? What are the situations that's going to put you in a position to use your skill? And it's, so to us, it's like continue just to build your habits, your foundation, your detail. And, I don't want anyone to ever play for me or for us where it's like, well, I like that guy, but he's got to be a top six or he's got to be a bottom six. Like, No, like your goal should be someone comes and sees you play and is like, I don't know where he fits, but I want that guy in our lineup. I want him on our roster. He could play with our top guys. He could play on a bottom line to checking role because just the foundation in a lot of people call it backup game, but just that foundation of his game is just something that you want him on the ice and you could trust him.
No, 100%. One of the sayings we have here is, when you have guys like that and lots of guys that come in the lineup, it's a good problem to have. It's not, it's worse when you only have a couple of top guys or a couple of guys who can play bottom and then you're trying to figure out lines. But
For sure.
um, being a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I thought I would just quickly ask you this question. Obviously, you mentioned you coached Nyes there for a little bit, and he's
Yeah.
obviously had some success in Toronto there. They put a lot of investment into him now, and I've liked him as a young player so far. But that being able to coach him at a younger age, did you see that potential? Are you surprised by what he's done, or at this point you're just like, yeah, that's how I remember him.
You saw it for sure. I think it was working. We had it wasn't without our moments. I could tell you that of like pushing in my way is I'll say this all the time. Like I'm going to push you extremely hard, but I'm going to support you even more. And I think with me and Maddie, if you asked him, it was like we butted and it was like push, okay, we're back on a good page, push. And then at one point, I'll never forget it, we just kind of had a breakthrough moment. And I think it was part of, Troy, our coach who worked with the forwards, trust with him and Ethan Goldberg and trust with him and kind of some of, our conversations. And man, when he took off the second half of his second year, I was like that he was the best player in the league. And the fact that he slipped to the second round, I was like, man, if anyone is watching us play, like this kid is an NHLer. He's big, he's strong, he plays hard. But that part of his game grew. Like he was that guy with a ton of potential that was like, man, if he would only, man, just want more. But like he did it. At the end of the day, we laid out what we thought was a plan for him, and we had, hey, here's your process. Here's how we think we could get you here. Troy would do video with him. I would do video. Like we would push him in the right direction. At the end of the day, he just grabbed it and took off, and he's never looked back. And goes on to college, Big Ten Player of the Year, and you step into the Maple Leafs and play on the first line, like pretty good, and obviously unbelievable to see a kid like that sign the contract that he just signed. And he's so humble. I mean, I talked to him about a week ago, and he hasn't changed, and you love that. It's just so pure love of the game. And again, those are the type of guys you want to give those contracts to, the guys who appreciate it and still, haven't changed a bit from when he was living in someone's basement in Kearney, Nebraska, playing for me.
Definitely the guys you root for, and it seems too like you mentioned, like hasn't changed, very humble, like, and obviously as Toronto market is obviously tough on their athletes in any sport, and he just doesn't seem very phased by it seems to come about his business every day, and I appreciate that about him. Um, you mentioned this early on about when you were talking about the drawing you had of when your terrible drawing from grade two or whatever it was, but I
Yeah.
thought it was a cool transition back to you ended up coaching multiple times Team USA on in multiple different occasions, and I just wanted to maybe ask you like how that was for you, obviously being able to be behind the bench for your country, and obviously it must have been a dream come true to see those colors every day, the jerseys in the dressing room, and go into those tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the biggest honor that there is in sports to represent your country on a national stage. Humbling to get the opportunity, thankful of the people, the Mark Boxers and John Van Beesbrooks and the people from USA Hockey that trusted me in those situations, and then like grateful of the relationships I'm at. I mean, some of my best relationships and closest friends in coaching are people that I was able to coach some of those teams with. A David Wilkie, a Shane Fukushima, a Mark Avalon, a PK O'Hanley, a Tommy Upton, like just a number of guys. And like, man, you go on those tournaments, and let's say there's 3 weeks, it's like a season. You go through training camp, you pick the team, you go through preseason, one exhibition game, you go through the round robin, which is like the regular season, then you get in the medal round, which is like playoffs. And it's special. Like, I think it's probably the most, I think of some of those games, and I think of a game where we beat Canada on our way to a gold medal with the under 19 team. We beat Canada in an overtime game in Canada. And like, I think it's the first time in my coaching career I ever got like emotional after a game. It's just like, man, it's what you think of growing up. It's just like it's bigger than you, and it's always bigger than you. But like to see the looks on the guys' faces, to see guys put their individual egos aside to do something for a greater good, which is a country they love and believe in. And it's just, it's the best. Like there's nothing compares to it at all. And it's, like I said, I'm forever thankful for those experiences. And it's something you dream of hopefully having, getting a chance to be a part of again.
Where's your gold medal?
Where is it?
Yeah,
Home
home.
at my house. Probably my most prized, if not my most prized possessions.
Oh, for sure. You know, winning a gold and yeah, anytime too. I think like for us, like, obviously me being Canadian, you being American, anytime you can beat your rival on your journey there, I think it makes it even more a little more satisfying. I'll be the
And then
first to
and
admit.
then we played Russia in the gold. That's what like kind of has missed a little bit these last number of years. Like play Russia in the gold medal game.
Yeah,
Like so it was, a team with Askarov and Podkolzin and those guys on it. And like, yeah, it was pretty special.
always good when you can bring home a medal representing your country, that's for sure. So back to your coaching career, you end up spending, I believe if my math is correct, 16 seasons as a coach in various levels, whether it was in D3, whether it was in the USHL or in the ECHL. And then finally, after all those years of grinding, I will say, or paying your dues, whatever line you want to throw in there, you make one of your goals, which was to always get to Division 1 hockey, be a Division 1 head coach. How did that opportunity come about for you? And again, like just talking about the similar to the gold medal, it must have been just like a kind of like a wow, all my hard work has paid off kind of moment to hey, I finally get to be a Division 1 head coach.
And so much of the wow was because it was this place. And I didn't play at Miami. And from a distance, maybe it doesn't look like I have any connection to it. But in a weird way, like people that really know me, like know that 15 years ago when I first got into coaching, like, you know, Will Nickel, who was the first person I ever worked for, he was on Rico Blasi's first staff here in the same exact position I was in for him at Stevens Point. So much of what you take and what you do as a coach, like, man, that's your roots. The first person you learn from, the first staff you're on, like that's going to be a lot of your foundation. And so when I worked with Will, a lot of what he did in trying to rebuild a storied program was what he took from Rico when he worked at Miami with him. And so that was always something that was like, especially me when we would go down to Miami to Naples in the coaching convention, we would hang out with the Miami guys. When I was coaching in Youngstown, I mean, we had a such a good run of sending guys from Youngstown here to Miami that wound up having great careers and being captains and like it was just a really good connection and in a team and a program that I had the utmost respect for. And when it opened up, like, the first time I ever saw Kyle Connor play was on this sheet of ice here. I went to go scout him and try to sign him. And I came to a Miami game. And I tell the story all the time. I'll never forget. I was walking up outside. There was tents all the way down the street in front of the dorms, in front of the arena, kids from the dorms sleeping in tents to get the first student section tickets. That's what I remember Miami being, and it was a sold out barn, and they were an unreal team, and like place was rocking, and so when this came up, it was something that it just felt right. And if I was going to leave where I was, and trust me, I loved it in Tri City. Like I was totally fulfilled there. I was what I love to do, which is develop people and develop hockey players. I was completely fulfilled. Loved it there. We had a special thing going. I believed in every bit of what we were doing to develop young men there. And if I was going to leave, it was going to have to be the right people, the right situation, and really the right thing that was going to stimulate my brain and my passion to put every bit of everything I have into something. And from the first conversation with David Saylor, the athletic director here, and Brad Okel, the associate athletic director, sometimes you just get on a phone or a Zoom or whatever it is, there's just like a click, like you're on the same page. And I think there was a little bit of, okay, hey, I just took over Tri City after a last place finish. When we went into Stevens Point, it was coming off their worst record, their worst season in 20 years. When I went into Youngstown, Kurt had it going in the right direction, but we were still a team that had missed the playoffs and at the bottom of the league. And it was like, okay, how did we get those places going? It was culture first. It was getting the right people in the right seats. It was changing the culture. And those early days in all those places were the most enjoyable part for me. Not when we, were winning Anderson Cups or when we were, getting it rolling or 17 game win streaks. It was those early days of the grind of figuring out how we're going to get this thing turned around. And so for me, the spark was there of like, man, this would be unbelievable to do it at this level in the best conference in the country in what I think is the biggest hidden gem in college hockey. Like this place is unbelievable. It is the most beautiful campus you will ever see anywhere in the world. The facilities, the arena are absolutely like breathtaking. Like people come in here and like can't even believe how nice it is. The locker room, the weight room, the just walking through campus here. Like, man, it was like when I came to meet with them, like it's the old adage, like the person going to buy a car and like, well, you don't want to like let on that you're gonna buy. I'm like, dude, if they even give me an inkling that I can be the guy here, like this is the spot. Like there's a feel, there's an aura, there's this is what college hockey should be, and it's a challenge. Like it's where they've been for whatever reason they've fallen to where they've been. It hasn't been for lack of having good people in this chair that I'm sitting in, and it wasn't for lack of care or funding or anything else. For whatever reason, it just went in the wrong direction. And to be the person that's been empowered to build a staff and build a team and rebuild this program piece by piece and first kind of tear it down to the studs and then build it back up and build a culture and do all the things that I really love doing of why I coach and why we coach, speaking to the rest of my staff as well. Like what an unbelievable opportunity. Like unbelievable and not an easy one. I mean, you look around our conference and you look at the guys across from you on the bench every night, no matter who you're playing. It's some of the best coaches in the world. But to be able to go against these guys and have this challenge and hopefully get this place back to where it once was, like man, I'm full. Like it can't be any more invigorating to me and to us, and it's something we feel really fortunate to be able to be a part of. We got a long way to go. We have a long way to go, but we feel like we made some serious strides towards that this last year in getting some of the pieces right and getting the culture right. And it's going to be a long road, but man, it's I've never been more certain of anything in my life that this place can get to where we want it to be.
Well, I think anyone listening will hear, first of all, and I know I do, the passion, behind you and what you think of both the place there and also the potential it has and also your ability to turn that place into, a top school. And obviously I had Rico Blasi on in the summer on the podcast, and he obviously was there pl as a player and a coach for a long time, and he also was very positive and spoke so highly of the program and his years there. And you could see from him too, just the passion he had, and that's a big reason why he had been there for so many years. You mentioned last year was your first year. You got a couple pieces in place now. We talked about off camera. You have basically a new team this year almost. It feels like a lot of new faces. Um, what types of players are you looking to recruit at University of Miami, Ohio? So we already talked about like the kind of the culture aspect there, but like what in terms of players, like what are you looking for?
So our thing in year one was like we had to build the foundation. Okay. In college recruiting has gotten so young where, a lot of what you're going after is kids that were going into their junior year of high school. So they're 2, 3, maybe 4 years away from playing for you. And most guys are committed. So like we take the job and it's like, man, like most guys are picked over and committed, or they're really young and we love them. We're going to go after them and get them, but they're a couple years away. So our thing was we are not going to cut any corners on character and compete level. Like every single, like if you look at our guys that we brought in here and there's a commonality, you're going to see a ton of guys that wore letters on their chest. You're going to see a ton of guys that were part of winning programs that are just going back to what I said, the guys you want on your team. You want them somewhere. You want them in your locker room. You want them in your program. You want them in your foxhole. Highly competitive, high character guys. Obviously, they've got to have elite qualities as players too. But those were the things we looked at. We needed to get into, it's not hard to look at, okay, where are the best teams in college hockey getting players from? We need to get in there and we need to go toe to toe with those teams. So, for us, what did we know? We knew the USHL. Okay, we're going to go and we are going to go after the best players, the highest character, highest compete guys in the USHL. We're going to go after the young birth class, which last year was rising juniors. We feel like we put together, verbally committed some of the best, one of the best classes. But we were able to piece together 21 guys and 21 guys that are either some guys came from other schools out of the transfer portals. some guys came from the CHL, some guys came from the USHL. We have a guy from the NAHL. We have two guys from U Sports. So when you needed to piece together that many guys, we had to get creative. Guys from different countries all over the place. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it all comes together. And we also have the guys that survived last year and the guys that went through last year and we decided to bring back. And if we did that, there was a reason behind it. And it doesn't mean they're guys that are, were the leading scorers or the most talented guys, but they were the right guys. And they were the guys that were totally bought in and believe in this place and want to do everything possible to push it forward. And thus far, we've seen a massive difference just culturally, like just in bringing a group of highly competitive, high character guys, and you put them in a room together, you put them in the gym together, you put them in practice together, like the level rises. They bring more out of each other. And again, we're going to have to continue to recruit and do everything we can. Like we need to be an all hands on deck staff where every one of us, David Ny's our GM, Troy Thibodeau, Leo Marone, myself, like we are going to be out. We're going to be in rinks. We're going to be talking to guys. We're going to be doing everything possible to find the guys that doesn't need to be the best player. Like you don't need the most stars. You need the best team in college hockey. This hockey is still a team sport. So I know we're living in an era of like, hey, this guy and NIL and this draft pick and whatever, like you need the best team. And so ultimately, we're trying to find the group that's going to make this university, our alumni group, the people that love Miami hockey proud, but play a style on the ice that's going to be easy to get behind for people that support us.
I would be assuming too that your type of recruiting has also changed due to the rules now changing a bit there with the major junior. Like, is that kind of, would you say that's kind of opened up a new list of players, a new window of opportunity for, I mean, obviously all Division One schools, but a school like yourself where now you have three different leagues where you could find those like maybe diamonds in the roughs or kids that maybe wouldn't have been on your radar, but now can be due to the rule changing with major junior players being allowed to go NCAA.
Yeah, I mean for sure. Like we have three guys coming in that played in the CHL last year, two guys in the OHL, one guy in the Western League, and then two guys in U Sports that previously played in the OHL before that. And for these guys, like kind of a new lease on life. You know what I mean? Especially two guys that were going to age out of the CHL, and it's like, okay, do I take my college package? Do I go to U Sports? Do I maybe try and get an American League, ECHL, two-way, one-way, whatever it might be? And now it's like, wait, I could go to college hockey. I could get an unbelievable education. I could, be in a place where I could develop personally, but also develop hockey wise and be in the gym, be on the ice and practice way more and all those things. And I think it's been a great fit for those guys. When they come here and they see this place, it's pretty easy to fall in love with. But again, we stuck to our principles even with those guys. Like it wasn't like, oh, this guy just had a bunch of points in, you know, ex CHL league. Like it was like, no, this guy was the captain of a team that won the Memorial Cup. That's the guy we want. This guy was a captain of a team that turned it around and finally got themselves to the playoffs. And he was, the Energizer Bunny on that team. That's the guy we want. This guy was the guy with a chip on his shoulder. And like those were the guys we went after because it's coming here in the situation we're in right now, like it's just not going to be for everyone. No different for me as a coach. Like it's not going to be, some guys are going to be like, well, and we've had it where certain guys have been like, well, let's see how they do in a year or two. Maybe if they get it going, and it's like we have no room for that. Like we need the guy that wants to be a part of this and is like, yep, I want to be the guy that goes there and gets that place turned around. I want to be part of the solution. I want to be the, when it gets turned, I want to be the class that they look and say, yep, those are the guys that did it. And listen, man, we're lucky we're in a game where there's a lot of competitive kids, and there's a lot of kids with fire and chips on their shoulder. And we tried to go after those guys. And that, listen, that's not to say it's not going to guarantee us any more wins or any success or anything like that, because you still are going against great opponents night in and night out. But we feel like I said, we feel like it's the right foundation to get this program going in the right direction. And thankfully, there was a number of players out there who believed in our vision, bought into it, and have come here with the goal of being those guys, of being those guys that reinvigorate this town, this team, and this program.
End of the day, to anyone listening, like if you're a coach or a GM or whatever in whatever league or school program you are, like like you mentioned, it's not always the best player, it's the right player. And you want guys who want to be there for your school. Not a guy that's going, the other five schools that I wanted to go to said no, I guess I'll come here. Like you want someone who is your first pick and they want to, like as you said, be part of the solution, be remembered as, we're the class that turned the program around or we're the class that did this. Like those are the guys that have that competitiveness, but also like are fighting for the same goal and best definitely playing for the logo on the front or the school name on the front of the jersey versus the name on the back.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's again, I think it's we have a group of those guys, and it's man, you talk about being enjoyable to walk into the weight room and walk into the players' lounge and go on the ice every day and just see how competitive they've been with each other in drills. And again, competition breeds success. The harder you push each other, like the more you're going to bring out of each other, and that's just again every stop I've made. That's the way we've built it. And again, you supplement later on. You get a difference maker, a Kyle Connor, and you get a Shane Pinto, and you get a Trevor Conley, and you get some of these special players, which are obviously awesome, but like it's that foundation of like, man, this is how we play, this is how we do things, and it ultimately like the standards create the success. Like having a standard in having core values, and that's a huge part of what we've done here early on with this new group is like establish our core values. Like, who are we? What do we want to be? What are we going to be about? Like, hey, here at Miami Hockey, like we're going to be tough, we're going to be disciplined, and we're going to be passionate. That's going to be our thing. Here's what those things are. Here's what they are defined. Here they are in video. Like, we're going to show them, we're going to celebrate them. That's what we're going to be about. And yeah, do we want to make plays and do we want to have skill? Absolutely. But like, those are the things we want to lean back on. And ultimately, those are the things that I think are going to make these guys wanted as teammates in part of someone's locker room and on their bench. But also, man, like I think those are the skills, like you mentioned earlier. Like it's going to make you a successful adult. It's going to make you highly employable. Like people are going to want you in their company. They're going to want you in whatever they're doing. They're going to want you around. They're going to want you in their family. And I think that's a huge part of what college athletics are about. Like it's not just about the hockey, and it's not just about the school, and it's not just about the soil. It's all of those things put together, and just preparing you for your next step of life and your next steps of life, even beyond hockey.
No, I 100% agree. Shaping young adults for the future, and for some of them they'll get to play whether it's pro hockey or have a career in it, and then others it's right into the real world and whatever career they're going to go into. And at the end of the day, they'll always look back on their years at school and the teammates, coaches who've helped them become the adult that they've become. We've been going at this for about an hour now. I got two more quick ones for you, and then I'll let you get out of here. Obviously, you've had a busy day so far, and I'm sure you want to get going. But not to put you on the spot, obviously, I know you're happy there at the school. You've spoke very passionately about the program there, but do you have any like maybe personal goals or somewhere you maybe want to see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
I mean, for me, it's never been about like thinking or putting a like this goal, this level, or this place. Like, I just I want to put everything I can into a place, and I want to maximize that place. And right now, man, I could not be any more 2 feet on the ground right here. Like I've been here just over a year, and when I say this, I speak for the rest of our staff too. Like Troy Thibodeau, who moved his family here, and David Nyes, who I've worked with before and left in the U.S. national program to come here. Leo Marone, who's here with his wife. Like we believe so wholeheartedly. I feel like I was an alum of this place. Like, and not that I've earned what they've earned, but like we love this place and believe in this place so much that we just want to do every single thing possible to get this place right, to get this culture where it could be, where it should be, and get this college hockey program back to where it once was, and to a point where it could be proud about what we're putting out there on the ice. And that is literally what I go to bed thinking about. That's what I wake up thinking about. And if at the end of the day that was my legacy in college hockey, man, I'm a happy man. And if we can make this a place like you look at back in the day and you look at the walls down there when Rico had this place humming, like this place was an NHL factory, but it was a leadership factory. Like you look at how many great NHL players came through this place and how many guys got drafted and signed free agent deals. Like we want to get back to that where it's like, I want to play in the NHL, man, that's a place I could go. And, I think we've got all the resources in place to do that. But also, it's like, man, you want to be successful in life, that's the place. You're going to get a great education. You're going to have an unbelievable time. You're going to make a group of brothers for life. And, ultimately you leave here, you're going to have opportunities because you got a degree from Miami University or you played hockey at Miami University. And, I want to play a part in that. And to me, the best leaders, they don't they don't create followers. The best leaders create more leaders. And that's ultimately what I want to do here. Like I want every guy who's with me as assistant coach, no different than I was juniors. I want these guys to move on and be head coaches. And they wouldn't be here if I didn't think they were capable of that or if I didn't think they wanted to do that. And I want the guys that play here to move on and be family leaders, business leaders, hockey leaders, like that. That's success to me. That's where my dream is. That's where my goal is. And ultimately I just, want to make the people that I represent proud. And I think that's the way to do it.
I can't disagree with you there. I mean, just listening to you talk about it again, and that quote there is, I'm definitely gonna have to throw that up as a clip after this podcast episode because it just basically spoke for itself. But no, you mentioned like the leaders they've had there. I would just like when you were talking at the start, I was looking back at the years that I was in college and just when I remembered guys who were there and like the names on this roster, like Andy Mealy still plays in our league here. Riley Smith was my age or a year younger. I remember I played Team Canada with him. Blake Coleman was there.
Alec Martinez.
Alex Martinez, Will Weber, I think was
Kevin
there.
Adams, the GM of the
Yeah,
Sabres, played here. Like, man, the amount of people that work in hockey, even like agents or guys in USA Hockey or coaches, like it's unbelievable. And there's again, you come here, it's just a pretty special place. Like it's 20,000 students, it's a college hockey town. Like it's a small, tight-knit community, and it's called the Brotherhood for a reason. There's something special about the guys that have gone through it and paid their dues and been a part of this place.
might have a couple more recruit applications after this episode gets out. Everyone's hearing about the great program you have there. But last one here, I always like to end on this one. What is one piece of advice or multiple pieces of advice you would give the younger generation out there?
I would say have a goal and then align your habits and your path with that goal. So I think it's really easy to be like, well, I want to play Division 1 college hockey. I always tell guys like deconstruct that. What's going to get you there? So that means you need to play junior A hockey. You need to play in the CHL or the USHL most likely. Okay, so what's going to get you there? You're probably going to have to be one of the most impactful guys on your midget team or high school team or Bantam team or whatever it might be. And then it's like, okay, how do you do that? Right? Like if you want to be elite at something, you can't be normal. You can't be. I've never met a guy that's elite at this game or anything else that's just a normal kid. Like you need to be different than your friends, you need to be different than your teammates. You can't do the same things the other guys do. You need to like I don't know, the best guys I know like they just sacrificed and did the things that other guys weren't willing to do. And they aligned every single thing that they did. And that's not to say they didn't have fun, but they aligned everything that they did with their end goal. And at the end of the day, every guy that I know that has done that hasn't necessarily made it to the NHL or made it to the highest level. But again, they have prepared themselves to be successful in life. They've made great teammates, friends, brothers for life, and they've had unbelievable experiences and they have had no regrets. And that's ultimately what you want to be able to look back at your hockey path and say, man, I made great friends. Man, I made great life lessons. And I don't regret one thing. Like I loved every minute of that.
A lot of people out there, I would say, have regrets for the most part. And like I can just speak for myself, is there's a lot of things I've learned with being out of the game, being on the other side of it, and maybe you feel the same as where when you're whether it's your coach or in management, like goalie coach, like you see the different side of it and you think back to kind of your experiences and you're like, man, I wish I knew that back then, or I wish I thought of it that way, or I wish I worked harder, whatever it is. And I always try to tell people out there, like, listen to these episodes, listen to your coaches because they're telling you what they've probably experienced, with coaching multiple athletes or working with athletes, whatever it might be, that, you know, never want to have regrets. Don't look back on your career and be like, man, I wish I worked harder. Man, I wish I did this. Like, leave it all out there. And at the end of the day, you can be satisfied and say, hey, I did everything to be, in this instance, a D1 athlete. satisfied. So
Right. And just develop, man, just like young hockey players, just focus on development. I think guys get so caught up in like summer tournaments and showcases. And like, I got news for you, man. Nobody's scouting you at 13 years old. Nobody's scouting you at 14 years old, unless maybe you're in like Western League territory. But like nobody's scouting you. We're not watching you. I coached in the USHL. We didn't look at guys till they were 15 years old. So when it's the summertime, get stronger, work on your skills, work on your habits. Don't spend your money running around playing in tournaments, 5 games on a weekend. Like get a skills coach, get a strength coach. I mean, the biggest upgrade we made here, we had all these players come in. Great. Like we hired Gord Farnell from the Calgary Flames. Like he's been a program changer for us as our strength coach. Like get someone like that where you could get, work at your habits and develop. And what part of my game do I need to get better at and work on that? Like that's what off season should be spent doing.
and also having fun too, I would say when you're young athletes. Like you obviously you can have the time to work and whether it's in the gym or on the ice, but also, don't forget to be a kid or be a teenager and have fun with your friends. And I think it's a good balance too. Like some coaches have been on here and recommend like whether it's taking a break or being a multiple sport athlete. Like you mentioned growing up, you played almost every sport there was.
For sure.
Um, but yeah, I always think there's that second part of it where it's like, you need to get away, give your brain a break because obviously hockey is a 9 month season sport. And then, in the summers you still have to put in the hours, but it's good to still enjoy your life too.
Absolutely, man. Have a balance and enjoy your just wherever you are, be totally present. If it's time to work out, man, like I'm gonna work out harder than anybody else, but if it's time to like be with your friends and be with your family, like be so present and all in on those moments too. And like, yeah, you said it. There's a balance there. And I feel like the harder you work, the more you wind up enjoying those times where you do get some freedom away from the rink and the weight room as well.
100% agree. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's good to talk to you about your program there. Obviously, as I mentioned multiple times, you seem like a very passionate person. As you just said, you're living where your feet are right now, and I'm very excited to see how you can build up the program there over the next couple of years. Definitely be following you guys. Hopefully, whenever I get back to North America, if I do a scouting tour this year again, I can hopefully come see a game in your area.
Would
I'd love
love
to
to
love,
have you,
love to
man.
come
You,
there.
you'd love this place. I'm telling you, it's incredible.
We'll stay in touch about it. But yeah, again, thanks so much for doing this. Good luck this season. And for anyone out there, if you're in the area, go see a game. If not, give them a follow on social media and stay up to date with all the team news and fun things.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And until next week, juice and chow.